Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
And welcome back to Realistic Sustainability. I'm Mike, and I am here with the slightly tired but recently returned from Disney, Mr. Rob Bogan.
Hello. I would like to say the more accurate description is moderately exhausted.
Moderately exhausted. That's an interesting way. Exhausted usually means it's high level. You're throwing the moderately in there to try to waterline it, aren't you? You're trying to make it. You're trying to undershoot it a little.
Definitely. And you can't really jab me if I nod off. So,
welcome back. I hope you had a blast.
I did. It was wonderful. Disney is a sustainability nightmare, but that's a whole nother episode, and we won't get into slander right now. But thank you for the welcome back. I'm excited for this week's episode for sure. I like the topic.
And while you were gone gallivanting through the most magical place on earth, Jamie and I were tearing apart a duplex. We won't go into the original condition of it, but what I will tell you is that a couple of things have happened over the last few days, and to me it fits in with sustainability. And we're going to have our little banter moment here anyways that is off topic, but I want to say it. Two major things have surprised me, and Jamie picks on me and tells me it's not supposed to be a surprise, but it is. It really is, and I'm kind of honored. So two things. Number one, for those of you who are following the Facebook, the Greening Your Life page, or even me, I think most listeners know if you try to friend me on Facebook, you'll get added to my Facebook right next to my mom. Like, I don't keep people off my Facebook. There's a ton of people from Greening Your Life. There's a ton of people from Dabble, a ton of people from even Live Launch on my Facebook. So if you're on any of those, you know that Jamie and I had just recently purchased what she calls the haunted duplex. It is an early 1900s home. And none of the duplex stuff is what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the people around me. I keep showing up to this place to go work on it. And granted, first things first, Jamie's probably putting in the most work out of anybody. Jamie is just loving it. Well, depends on the day, loving it, but she's out there working her butt off. But there's some other things happening. Number one, we have a gentleman that comes to Dabble on a regular basis, and I think we've become friends. His name is Chris. I show up to the duplex. He has spent his whole day off mowing, trimming, and edging the property. Didn't just wanted to be outside, he said. And in my head, I'm like, man, I'm always trying to help other people, and here's some money. Thank you so much for coming over here and helping us out. And he just looked at me very dead in the eyes and said, absolutely not. I came because I wanted to help.
Wow.
I have my friend Mike, who builds things for a living. He's at that house right now swinging a hammer and won't take a check. There has been at least 5 people who have shown up and said, tell me what to do, and won't take nothing for it other than maybe I buy them lunch, they'll accept it, or a beer or something. People are just showing up, and I'm not necessarily mentally equipped or accustomed to that kind of friendship. I don't know. It's just this community thing. You know, we've been working on community now for 5 or 6 years. And there's been a bunch of people in Durand who's been working way longer than me, but I'm starting to see it, and it didn't stop there. For those who follow the socials, we have a back to school event coming at Dabble, and every year we buy school supplies and we just give them away to the community. Doesn't matter where you come from. I'm not carding people. You show up, you get school supplies. You get them until they're gone. And up until this point, other than my brother-in-law helped me a little bit last year, I've just been buying them, trying to build this event. This year, a lot of things changed. Not only am I watching people show up to help renovate this house, I'm getting phone call after phone call. So far on that event, I've got my 3 sponsors that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Right, PFCU, the credit union here
Yep.
in town, they sponsored it. High Temp Heating and Cooling, they sponsored it. First Congregational Church here in town, I got a phone call. I've now met with 3 church leaders within the last 3 weeks. I've gotten phone calls, and they are all chipping in, all finding a way to help. Some are writing checks, some are dropping stuff off. I one of my biggest one of the biggest compliments I've ever heard was talking to a church leader who says it's our job to be good neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been a good neighbor this whole time, sometimes better. So instead of us reinventing the wheel, why don't we support the person who's already doing it? And that's a big deal to me. That's an honor. That is 3 different churches, 3 different walks of life, 3 different groups, 2 companies, and now after today, CN, Canadian National,
Mm-hmm.
has
The
just joined.
railroad.
Yep, they just joined today too.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, I don't even have words, honestly.
Well, that's because you yourself, and I know you would never say this, but I've known you long enough now to know that you're always going to stay humble, and you're going to keep humility in your spirit. And I think actually I know that is why those people tend to reach out and help you in those projects, because every single thing that you do is not a Mike thing at all. It's not, edible landscape project to benefit Mike, like you're doing for the community. Dabble was started because you wanted people to have a safe place to come and unwind and hold meetings and do gaming tournaments and everything. You wanted a place for the community to come and assemble, congregate, whatever you want to call it, and not have to worry about paying absorbently crazy prices. Like, you're doing things for the betterment of the community, so it's only a matter of time before the community goes, all right, let's look out for this dude. Like, maybe we should keep him around. He's doing enough for us. Maybe we should start doing for him. And I know that there's a saying, and I can't remember specifically how it goes, but it ends with, people never forget how you made them feel. And I think that situation applies directly to you and in this moment. So yeah, man, flowers right now. You're getting them. Kudos to you. And I hope you keep up the good work, man. I know you will, actually. I know you'll keep up the good work.
But that's all. I mean, that's what I wanted to, in our banter, I want to
Yeah.
give kudos to all these people who are stepping up in our community. CN, PFCU, High Temp. I mean, they're throwing their hard-earned money into this so that we can give school supplies to as many people as humanly possible. Last year we were able to help 84 families, but it wasn't 84 complete families. Midway through, I'm running out of backpacks. I'm running out of binders, and we're just giving out whatever we got.
Right.
We got a fighting chance this year to go 4 hours
Mm-hmm.
and be able to hand out stuff because there's so many people willing to jump in.
And that's
And
good.
I'm wildly appreciative.
Real quick before we get into the main topic, I took a few seconds just to Google that quote because I remember it being from Maya Angelou, and the quote is, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that largely applies to this scenario. Like, a lot of people maybe won't be as aware that the mic that's working on this duplex, or the mic that runs Dabble, is also the mic that does the edible landscape project. But maybe one of their kids just so happened to come in and didn't have the funds or anything like that to purchase a backpack or winter coats or gloves or scarves, because I know you do that too, and they just so happen upon Dabble and now they have those things. Or maybe you have a kid that it needs that community feel with those gaming tournaments that you hold at Dabble, and you're doing, I don't want to ramble too long, but you're doing good for the community, man. So stop being so damn surprised when people want to lend you a helping hand. The good that you are putting out will be repaid onto the.
Well, let's keep in mind when it comes to Dabble, I'm like a mascot who does the bookkeeping. Okay. Danny, Earl, Chris, all these people come together and they run this building like a village.
Mm-hmm.
There's a half dozen people who can come in and out of my building without me even knowing, because this place is run by the people who are here all the time. These events, Jamie, her family, all these people help.
Mm-hmm.
On top of all these, the community showing up to make it work. On top of that, Edible Landscape, without the city, without Jeff, without Candace, without Blair, that stuff doesn't happen. And Jeff just came to me this week with a proposal from a local company willing to do composting with the city, that if we give them all of our organic waste, they will supply trash cans first as a pilot, smaller ones,
Mm-hmm.
to start collecting everybody's organic food waste. They will compost it. The city will receive a certain percentage of it to use throughout the city. And then that company's reward is to be able to bag and sell. But all the restaurants, selection of homes, they said we had to get 30 homes, which is, I think, is why Jeff came to me. I'll find 30 homes that will take a trash can. I'll go live from Dabble's account to get 30 people. But Durand may actually have a citywide composting program that will help a local business reduce the amount of food waste, which we are about to talk about.
Excellent segue. See, you're
like that?
You're brilliant with these segues, man. I love it.
That
Keep
was
going.
absolutely luck, just so you know. And we can actually have another sustainability project other than Edible Landscape, and some of the food waste from the plants. We know where it's going to go now. The leaves in town, we know where it's going to go now. We can get them out of the streets. We can quit screwing up our septics. We get the street sweeper, we take it elsewhere, and they turn that into black gold, is really what that dirt is,
Okay.
and be able to redistribute. So there's so many good things. We have concerts in the streets, sometimes anywhere from 300 to 1,200 people. That's more than a third of the population of this town. Like, it's just, I don't know. I guess I'm just in a good mood today, man. Too many good things. I'm gonna get all emotional or something.
Yeah, well, just make sure you save the video so there's record of it.
Yeah, we won't. But so this week we're talking about the correlations. We're talking about something I was actually just curious about, and since it's a question, let's make it a show. How has the high cost of food, that inflation, all these things, well, it's not just inflation, we call it inflation, but there's a greed factor mixed in. How is that affecting food waste? Now, I'll tell you, the research I did was pretty much exclusively to the US, but we're the worst at it, so it's probably the best example. Intuitively, I think, man, it's got to drop. The food waste has to probably greatly reduce with food costs shooting up 25%. So let's take a look really quick. Basic numbers. Where does our food go? Because it's been a long time since we did a food waste conversation. When you start from the farm up, your farms are going to lose 16% of whatever they try to grow. Okay, that's just going to happen through loss from wildlife, through poor processing, to missing it. Roughly 16% of their yields are lost. Then you have things like supermarkets. Supermarkets are 13% of everything that goes into a supermarket. Remember, this is kind of a compounded thing.
Sure.
Your manufacturing processes, which surprised me, is only like 2%. For some way, manufacturing has figured out how not to waste as much as every other item on the spectrum. Now, an interesting one was restaurants, because there's two numbers for restaurants. Restaurants waste about 18% of the food that comes in. Once it's served, we waste 40% of that food.
Absolutely. I can believe that.
And then in households, the average in the United States is to waste 43% of all the food purchased. Now, what kind of food gets wasted at what kind of rates? Just some really basic, dividing things up. And I always find it funny that seafood and meat are two different categories, but hang with me. Dairy is wasted at about 17%, which I believe half of that is people looking at a date and going, it's bad, throw it out.
Right. Yep.
Seafood, 35% of seafood gets wasted. And this is numbers once it's in the home. Okay. We're not talking bycatch or any of these other topics.
Right.
Meat, it says meat, but really I think this is beef, chicken,
Pork. Yeah.
21%. And the big one is, of course, fruits and veggies. They're perishing. And we're getting them from so far away so often. There's a ton of loss, but once it's in the home, and we're bad about it. Like, my chunky butt's going, I need more salads. I buy a bunch of salad stuff, and then I don't eat enough salads. And the next thing you know, things are wilting, you got a little odor going on, and you've wasted. So those are our basic waste. How are you on those?
I am one of those that fit the bill of what you just described specifically. I go, you know what? Today's the day. I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to buy a ton of apples, and I'm going to buy this kale, and I'm going to buy these bananas, and I'm going to buy these navel oranges. And I'm going to reduce the amount of meat that I eat, but I'm also going to eat cleaner. So I'm going to do seafood. And I buy those things, and I forget a lot of times that they still have to be cooked and prepared in a certain amount of time or consumed within a certain amount of time before they go bad. And that's one of my biggest contributions to food waste in and of itself is, I guess, a lot of times being the consumer, my behaviors will directly influence food waste, just because, and I'm pretty sure everybody does it. Like you just said, you buy the bag of salad and you're not paying attention, and you don't realize that the bag of salad expires the day that you buy it, and then it sits in your fridge for a week, and then you go, oh, that salad sounds good, and now it's coleslaw, but not the good kind. So
now, if you lived in Durand, you could just go outside and get more salad.
This is true. I do need to make a trip out there because I want some green tomatoes, but
which I've mentioned a few times that, and you're not the only person. I know at least 4 people who show up for green tomatoes.
Okay.
Because you can't really buy them.
No. And they are the best that I've ever had comes from out there. Like, it's mind blowing. I do staying on topic though, and I don't know if maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but in my tiny bit of research, I don't like to say research because I'm not a scientist, just looking into it. I didn't really fact check a whole lot of this, but I did discover that certain retailers deliberately overstock their shelves to create an illusion of abundance, and that leads to food spoilage before it can be sold, and that forces retailers to raise their prices to compensate for the losses.
So that's the psychology of marketing. That is a low-cost product they can do it with, especially in season. You ever notice that in season is when they overstock it? They don't always overstock it in the off seasons.
Right.
They can write off the waste, so they get the additional purchases and the write-off for the waste. And it's a poor practice that we're accustomed to. So when we talk about that 18%, what you're talking about is probably close to 10% of it.
Wow.
That there is some that is just damaged, or unfortunately someone took a bite out of it and put it back, or whatever it happens to be.
Right.
Here in town they have a basket, like fruit for kids kind of thing, because you wheel a child in there and they're like, I want those, and you just give them one out of the basket. That was their compensation of figuring out how to solve some of those problems. But that is when the retail side, the making the money side, has pushed, the capitalism side has pushed beyond realism. They are really planning on throwing a lot of that away, because they will get you to buy 3 or 4 items psychologically instead of one. And then they still get the write-off for the rest. So it's unfortunate when capitalism rules the roost. You're gonna have things like that. Now, if that waste actually hurt them in a negative way, they would never do it.
Right. Like, I feel like if you are deliberately overstocking your shelves, then it should come with the caveat that if you don't sell all of this product, you can't write off your losses.
So let's say I deliberately overstock my lot full of cars at a car dealership.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean they can't write off certain losses, write off depreciations, trade out vehicles with other dealers, do something that helps make up for it? Maybe they have a burst. Now, this industry is doing it on purpose. I understand that.
Right.
But how do you fight that in a court of law? They're buying things. The reason why they're doing it is because it's dirt cheap during the season. When you go to buy corn today, it's 20 cents. You go to buy corn in December, it's going to be frozen.
Right.
You're going to pay a lot more for it. So while it's cheap, they wildly overload and then just throw it out. There's really not a huge markup in it anyways, but they're trying to draw you in, see this wonderful abundance, and have you grab lots of things.
Yeah, and I wonder, how much of that is compounded as we talk about this and as we unpack it more and more. Like the one thing that comes to mind, I shop typically at Myers. I know there's no S, but I it's there in my mind. It's there. So
if you're in Michigan,
I typically shop there, and the thing that comes to mind is, when you're in there, a lot of times you'll see these, 10 for 10 sales. And it's like, oh, wow, like this is a really great deal. Now, am I actually going to use all 10 of those things? Probably not. Am I going to consume all of them? Probably not. But because they're only $1 now instead of $1.05, I have to get 10 of them.
Yes, and that's another psychological thing for marketing, because now you would be leaving 50 cents on the table.
Right.
If you didn't get 10 of them or somewhere around that, it's a psychological thing to get those 10. Then on top of you taking that home and not eating them, let's say 30% of people who go into Meijer, that happens. Well, Meijer has a person who looks at sales and says, hey, we've got a spike. We should order more.
Mm-hmm.
In the world of economics, they're all happy. In the world of sustainability, we're just increasing waste on a regular basis, because buying 10 for 10 of a perishable item, you're either going to be very sick of it by the end of the week, or you're going to throw a lot of it away.
Right. Right. And that's, perfect kind of segue into I got a ton of notes on my phone here. But I wrote this kind of as a thought and as a question. So essentially, when we, the consumers, when we buy more food or more goods than we need or than we can consume before it spoils, then that directly contributes to food waste, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when retailers see that people are buying more of a thing, then that excess demand will basically drive prices up, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
now people are trying to meet that production and demand. So at what point does somebody, or does it ever happen, does somebody look at it and go, wait, 6 months ago we weren't selling any of these things, and now we are selling a lot of them because we've slashed the prices? Like, how sustainable can this be? How long can we keep this up? Like, is there ever a person that looks at that, or do people just go, yep, just keep the money train moving because this stuff was sitting on the shelves when it was 5 cents cheaper 6 months ago, but now we're just blowing through inventory?
Reality is most stores, again, there's always some good ones, but most large chains work from the money side. Okay. So there's also a spot when something becomes popular, or they run sales and it jumps way up, and maybe people decide, oh, I still like that. They start buying it and their general volume goes up, because that's the purpose of a sale, either to get rid of something that's going to go bad or get you hooked on something new.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always a spot after a sale where you have a bunch of stuff and people change their mind, because they remember, we're jumping from item to item on a regular basis. And then you end up with a big spike in waste, because you're meeting demand, but now you've created a new demand in aisle 6, and this item is no longer in demand, but you bought a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And now you see this huge amount of food waste and you go, well, I should probably order less. And you drop it down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can see it in a supermarket. A good example is, I think they're the mini mandarins, the cuties.
Yes.
Or halos.
Yes.
When those first came out, they were like $1.99 a bag.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They were producing them. They're genetically modified to not have as much meat between the skin and the fruit, making them easier to peel. So when they first came out, it was kind of a novelty, a novel idea. They had produced so much of it. Well, it became very, very popular. They're very easy to open. They're very easy to separate. People don't even want an actual orange anymore. They want these.
Mm-hmm.
And now what we've seen is there's only so much they can grow based on it being genetically modified. And they haven't ramped up you got to grow trees. You got to do things to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Now these things are $8.99 a bag.
Yes, I'm very familiar. That is one of those fruits that I have to throw. And I have a story, but I want you to continue your thought before I share.
There will come a time that if they stay that popular, other trees, when these companies say we gotta grow our business, add more trees, there will come a time when something else popular shows up. These trees mature, and an overabundance of fruit will come in, and this thing will drop way back down again because there'll be more fruit than demand, supply and demand economics. But that's where you can see where people follow, where people are running after. They tried it again with grapes that taste like cotton candy. That one has not won people over.
It's my favorite.
And you can see them very affordable in the grape aisle. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you can tell how that supply and demand works based on their pricing scales, and you can watch certain things like that. Tell me your Mandarin Halo / cutie story.
Yeah, so I guess it's less of a story and more of an observation, but I'm noticing because you just hit the nail right on the head. I love them because they are incredibly, and here's where we always sacrifice sustainability for convenience. I love that they're so easy to just grab and peel and eat and go. There's almost zero effort required, right? Even though an orange is probably more sustainable. But I've noticed recently when I buy those halos or I buy those cuties, they are like there's not much quality control behind it, I guess, because I've gotten a bag of those, and after maybe 2 days, I'm like, what the hell? Why is my counter sticky? And there's 3 or 4 of them in this whole batch that I just kind of dumped them all out of the bag into my sweet little fruit tray that I just bought because I'm eating healthy again. And I noticed that several of them are like rotten, fuzzy. And it happens, I would say, out of every 5 bags that I've recently purchased, 2 times. A whole lot of them. So is that
actually
go ahead. Yes, I know you got an explanation.
No, and there is, and it's the moral of today's story. So I'm not going to tell you your answer yet.
Oh man.
But there is a reason.
Cliffhanger.
So first of all, what you're seeing here, when you start seeing bad fruit mixed in with good fruit on a regular basis, it means they're not keeping up. Or there is a ton of storage. It can go either way. I've had some that within a couple of days, there was one that was fermented. I probably could have gotten slightly drunk from it.
Yes.
And we're seeing that more and more. So I guess in a sense, there could be 2 options. Are they sitting in storage and not getting turned because their price is too high? I don't think that's what it is because they're not bringing the price down.
Mm-hmm.
Usually you bring the price down before you damage the product.
Right.
What this is likely telling me is we haven't slowed down and they're just not keeping up with the supply. So things that sometimes would be tossed aside are not. So as we get going, we'll answer that a little more clearly.
Okay.
So
perfect.
we talked about how COVID the world is different. We have this weird little dip in the middle of our timelines.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're looking at quality of anything and you're like, hey, how was it in 2020 or 2016? And you're looking at it, there's always numbers that are screwed up now.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the kind of a retail like atmosphere. Everything just it's different because of that. There's a pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID understanding. Pre-COVID, everything was what we called normal life.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-COVID was, limited to no panic buying. If there's a hurricane, everybody bought water, which I always found weird because that's what's coming. uh, high restaurant use.
Uh-huh.
High restaurant use, low home cooking, very, very high leftover waste. People would, if they did make something or they brought something home, they very rarely, as often on average, ate it. They just transported it for its entertainment. Uh, low delivery prior to COVID, and not a ton of stockpiling. I mean, there's always some people that just stockpile the stockpile, but in general, there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a ton of stockpiling. Then you go into during COVID, and these are more how people acted,
Mm-hmm.
generalization. So during COVID, high panic buying, that's screwed up every algorithm online
Yeah.
because of panic buying. Uh, Low restaurants because you couldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
High home cooking because that was your option. Low leftovers because you couldn't quite get as much stuff as you used to, so you kind of ate it all or most of. High stockpiling. If you could find it, you bought them all, and very high delivery when it was available.
Yeah.
Post where we're at today.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, and again, a lot of this stuff's coming from USDA. They say that people have immediately stopped panic buying. We're back into some normality in that sense. Very average restaurant usage, average home usage. So in the middle of the two is where
Mm-hmm.
we're sitting. Same thing with use of leftovers. Very low stockpiling, which I find weird because I'm still stockpiling things. Average food delivery, which I thought would be high because we created it and kind of shot in the arm these delivery industries during COVID. So I expected that to be higher.
Yeah.
And according to the USDA, food prices from pre-COVID to today, and I think this might be kind of a conservative number, has jumped 25%,
Very conservative.
where the number one cost to a household that's changed is transportation. Number two is food.
Hmm.
Number three is housing at 20%. Number four, recreation is 14. Healthcare has gone up 10%. Apparel and education/communications gone up 5%.
Hmm. Okay.
So, but food, 25% jump, and I think we all feel like that's conservative, is still a really big jump in such a short period of time, which would really stress households.
For sure. Yeah, I have a couple of things, I guess, that kind of are making the wheels turn. I wonder how specifically they measure restaurant usage, because another thing that has exploded in recent months, recent years especially, are your DoorDash, your Uber Eats, your Grubhub. So you're ordering, right? You're getting takeout, but you're getting takeout from all these different restaurants. So like how are we factoring in the actual, and I know you probably don't know, maybe you do, but how are we actually factoring in the restaurant usage? Are we factoring in actual in-person visits, or are we factoring in just how much the restaurant itself gets used?
And I don't know necessarily how they measure that. I assume there's a financial aspect to it, how many dollars are flowing through certain industries,
Sure.
or how much material is floating through industries, so something like that. Because to me, I would assume that it would, if it's only financial, it should show 25% higher.
Right.
So I'm not necessarily sure how that's calculated.
Mm-hmm.
What I do know is that, and I'll just say it once, it's not because of shortage of product.
No.
So the term inflation doesn't necessarily apply fully
Mm-hmm.
here, but that cost is high. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, that is intuitive that if a cost is high, that waste should be low.
Yeah, and I learned that is a complete non-correlative statistic by my recent visit to Disney World. And this is another example of contributing to food waste on my end. We went for breakfast at
Mhm.
the hotel that we stayed at, and my wife Maria got an omelet. I ordered the pancakes, and they did not give you an option. Like, it was not possible to order or to do a half order. My son, who is growing like a weed and playing football, he ordered like a breakfast combo and just destroyed everything. I was impressed. But they bring my wife this omelet out, and the omelet is, I'm gesturing with my hands. You guys will never be able to see this. Mike is an engineer, and he can calibrate what the dimensions of where my hands are right now. So my wife
Far
gets this
too large, far too large.
this omelet that's this huge, and it's like they shoved an entire brick of cheese in the middle of it. And of course, she's like grossed out at this point. It's like, that's entirely too much cheese. Who would think this is delicious? Meanwhile, I get these pancakes, and he's gonna measure this out for you too. 4 pancakes that are about this big. Okay, we're gonna go the size of
your
my head.
The size of your
Literally.
head.
4 of them, and I'm trying to power through because I'm like, Mike's gonna be pissed if he knows about this, and I'm trying to power through them. And dude, I kid you not, I got maybe a third of the way through, and I'm like, I cannot. But the correlation there, though, is each one of those things was about $25. So you think, 15, 20 years ago, each one of those things would have been way less, right? So like the cost of food is astronomically high. But then I look around, and on everybody's table around me, nobody's finishing their food. So those portion sizes are just massive, gargantuan, so much so that nobody can actually eat it. So I guess where I was going with that thought is, how much of the food waste issue is caused by a lack of portion control.
So Tony's here in Michigan in Birch Run
Mm-hmm.
prides themselves on giving you a full pound of bacon on your sandwich.
Uh-huh.
It started off as, was it in Las Vegas, the heart attack hamburger joint.
Mm-hmm.
It started off as a novelty, but what companies have learned is your omelet, the ingredients to them are relatively cheap. Now, if Nick was here, he'd be yelling and screaming and throwing things at me because food isn't cheap and he caters, and that's not how it works.
Uh-huh.
Disney buys more.
For sure.
They get it much more reasonable than the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to wow people, I'm going to charge you $25 no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you a normal portion, and you will call it expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can add $3 eggs and a little more cheese from the block instead of shred, and a little bit of other things that are lower on the cost scale, maybe some veggies. Punch this thing into the size of your foot, and you'll take pictures of it, and you will put it online and go, look at the size of this thing. They'll get promotion. They'll get $25, and they really don't care if you eat it all. The matter of fact, if you eat it all, they feel like they failed because they have to be special. This has to be so big that you could never eat it all. It's always worth the money. Look at the value.
Yeah.
Problem is you're not taking it with you. That shows up on my plate in front of me. I immediately ask for the take-home container. I peel 3 of those pancakes off, throw them in there so they don't get all wet.
Mm-hmm.
And then start my process. If I need a second one, I know where to find it. But at least I'll have 3 dry pancakes I can snack on while we're wandering around for 6 hours.
Right.
That's where the value happens. Can you take it with you? And if so, did you? Don't stuff yourself to the point of pain. Then you paid for indigestion and a little stretching feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Take it with you. That's the only option. Now, if you're in a big park like that, are you going to wander around with a bag of food in your hand for 8 hours? Probably not. And that is, much like cruise ships, the amount of waste in food in those kinds of environments are far and above that 40%, 43% we have in the house. But it's designed that way. It's
Right.
designed to make you think that you are so special, that you are eating like a king. There's no way you could have finished all the food they brought you. Unfortunately, when you're done, 3 of you spend $100 for breakfast.
Right.
Also not necessarily sustainable.
No, not at all.
Which, by the way, we're killing it on segues.
Yes.
That can get me into the next section here.
Okay.
So we talked about it's not all inflation. There's a mix of greed also. Food waste in the United States right now is about 43%.
As a whole.
It's actually ticked up just a hair. Food cost has gone up 25+%. Food waste has not dropped in the United States. You know what has changed?
What's that?
How much credit card debt we have in the United States.
That has also gone up.
The price went up. The appetite did not come down. And instead of bringing it down, in America, we used debt. We did not reduce the amount of consumption. We just changed how we paid for it.
That's interesting.
So here we are in a situation in the United States where food costs more. And beef, by the way, no way that's 25%. Beef is significantly, it's got to be closer to 50, which I don't eat a lot of beef anymore, and I don't eat a lot of meat anymore in comparison for what we buy. But that's one good thing we've been able to stick with. But so food costs more. Our soil degradation in our farms is terrible. Yields are bad. Chemical replacement isn't replacing. And now we're even starting to see quote unquote fake foods. Foods that are not what you're accustomed to. Apple meats that don't have any snap to them. They're more textury and mushy. We're seeing fast grown food to try to supplement for the appetite of the United States, while we are not producing enough income to buy it. We have increased debt, credit card debt in the United States by $108 trillion in 2023.
Just in that year alone. That's insane.
Not just in food, but in everything. If you notice, people haven't necessarily slowed down with any consumer purchases.
I happen to have an inside track on why that is specifically, though.
Well, I'm interested. You got me hooked.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're gonna dive right into it. So as you're aware, I work with and for a large financial institution. And what I see is that people are heavily incentivized to use their credit card, not specifically responsibly, but just to use your credit card. And the reason behind it is because when you swipe your debit card or when you use your debit card through Apple Pay or Google Pay, you're getting absolutely nothing. But when you use your credit card, 90% of these credit cards out here are going to generously give you some sort of reward or bonus or a cash back. And so people are using these cards under the illusion that, hey, I am going to be able to get cash back whenever I do this purchase. Now, most of the time, the cash back on your more popular cards is going to be anywhere between 1.5% to 2%, which means for every $100 that you spend, you're going to get $1.50 or $2 back. That's it. But nobody correlates that to the actual cost of that credit card, because in addition to those giant bills that you're racking up for $1 here, $1 there, if you don't pay all of that debt off, if you don't pay your card off in full by the end of the month, you're going to get interest on top of that. So it's just a quick mathematical thing. You end up burying yourself under the guise of, hey, I'm going to get all these rewards, these bonuses, these cash back offers, when in reality, it really only benefits you if you are genuinely just paying it off as you spend. But obviously, with the number you just threw out there, nobody's doing that.
No, and you're right. It's Dabble has a card, and when it buys something, it gives me some kind of reward. Actually, it's Hilton points for hotels, and then Dabble has to pay that off the following month. But if you're getting 2% cash back, and I'm going to be laughably off because I have one that's 7%, you're still losing.
Yeah.
And the average credit card in the United States, the average credit card in the United States is over 17%. And I've seen some that are like 29. I don't even know. There's got to be a cap. It's got to be 29.99. I don't think I've ever seen anything higher, but then they just add fees.
Yeah.
To avoid to avoid going above the line.
Yeah, there's a variable rate. There's a whole thing behind it. You would be shocked, but to briefly answer your question, no, there is no cap. It is all based on the prime rate and whatever market conditions set. So essentially, if we get into a situation that we got ourselves into in 2022, when you really saw rates start to rise, theoretically, yeah. I mean, you could you could be paying 30% interest on a purchase, that, and then at that point, it's going to take you years to pay it off.
And I learned a bad lesson when I was younger. I once had a credit card that was only for eating out, and at some point it got maxed out, which means I have digested everything on this card long ago. And I'm now paid, 29% or whatever it was when I was younger on the food that has been long gone. That was a tough lesson. That lesson was almost as tough as 18 months, same as cash, and not making that, not getting it done in 18 months. So those are two very painful financial things, but we'll move back to the sustainability side. I found it really interesting. I found it to be a little scary that in the United States, the capitalism side is so strong that even when we go through the hardest of times, it is that hard to slow down consumption. That scares me for the future of general sustainability. Because really, for example, the meat market, the whole concept of when beef, because you remember beef rise before COVID.
Right.
Because of its standing within its carbon footprint. There had to be a system where we would slow down the consumption a little. So they raised the price. I found it shocking that we don't slow down. And that is scary for the future of sustainability, because really it's always the stick and the carrot to see if you don't want people to drive, you raise the price of gas. If you want people to drive, you lower the price of gas. And it drives the usage or how people react. But that's becoming a situation where that's simply not true. We just dig a hole. We just charge it. Do
you think, and maybe this is a little off subject from what you were just talking about, but it kind of makes sense in my brain, so I'm going to say it. Do you think, or how much do you think we can attribute those things to just an overall lack of awareness? Like, people are genuinely not aware of how much they actually need. So we just kind of unconsciously overbuy because we think we need more than what we actually need. And then once we get to the portion that we've actually needed, we go, oh, well, shoot. And everything that we buy now has a use by or a sell by or a best buy date on it. So it's like you're constantly running up against the clock. It's just like, that you have to use it by this certain date, but also, did I really need to buy this 5-pound tub of ground beef? And I'm only going to use 1.5 pounds, maybe.
Well, and we're going to do little sales and things if you get the 16 ounce, it costs this much, but you can save a ton by getting a 32 ounce. Now, if you only use 16 ounces, you didn't save a ton. You spent the difference.
Right.
If you threw out the rest of it, not only were you unsustainable, but you spent money you never actually got something back from. Your opportunity cost is broken. But we're in a consumer culture. And you ask, did we not notice? Everybody noticed. Unfortunately, in the United States, you can notice anything terrible. All you have to do is blame the other team in politics, and you've got yourself an scapegoat.
Got it.
It's always that other guy's fault, or possibly other lady's fault.
Sure.
The simple fact is we don't think that deeply about problems like that. Everything attributes to one person, which, by the way, is wildly fictional. That one person does not
Right.
control everything. Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
No one person has that mental capacity to control everything on the planet. It's just not a thing. But that's what we do in the United States. We say, "Oh, it's that person's fault. It's bad, their fault. It's
Mm-hmm.
good, my team. Yay!" And that's all we tend to do. I really thought we would slow down. Actually, I thought we would take a little break.
Nope.
But we slightly uptick.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you feel the pain, and so that you feel better about it, you do the same thing you've always done. I wonder if that becomes the mentality as middle class evaporates,
Mm-hmm.
that I just want normality, so I'm just going to keep doing it.
Right. Which, yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense, because in normal everyday conversation, with friends, with family, and sometimes with complete strangers, you would be amazed, and I'm pretty sure you probably run into this too, but you would be amazed how many times people will go, man, I wish we could go back to the way that things were. And when I hear that, it's like, well, we can't. We don't have a time machine, so it's best that we put in the, and I am talking to myself when I say this, not sitting on a high horse, but it's like, sometimes I feel like we do need to take a step back and really analyze, what is it that we really need? Like, are we really as turned off as we need to be by this slightly deformed bell pepper, or is it still going to taste the same? Like, what is really the urgency on these use by, sell by, best by dates on here? Why aren't we freezing things more? Because that considerably slows down that aging process too, but a lot of people don't do that. I think you're 100% right, and I put in my notes here that this is one of those things that is everybody's responsibility. Is not just the responsibility of the producers or the retailers or the farmers or anything like that. Like, we all play a crucial role in reducing food waste specifically. And some of those things, like I was just talking about, freezing things, properly storing your food, only buying what you need. I know you've been a major proponent of that since I've known you. Like, we don't need to buy all this stuff. We don't need my sneakers. Like, I have 2 feet, but tons of pairs of shoes. Like, we don't need all of this stuff. And I think it would be wise for us to take a step back. And I know we live in a consumerist regime, so to speak, but I do want to bounce this towards you. Outside of the marketing and the psychology behind it, why is it so hard for us to take that step back and just think, do I really need this?
Because you want it. There's a psychological side of getting things. There was a period of time in the United States where people spent much more time together. In my grandfather's era, yes, you worked your butt off outside. You did, your job may have been harder. Long ago doesn't necessarily mean better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But there was a time in the United States where wealth was gained and you had more free time and you could spend that time with your family. Now, here we are with very little time. We work a lot. We move quickly. We waste a lot. Sometimes slowing down matters. Sometimes it's hard for a culture to change, but it has. It has several times throughout the history of the United States or any other country. We have to kind of pioneer a thought process that grandpa already had. The waste that came out of that kitchen went to the chickens, went to the pigs. Everything had a purpose. If the hammer broke and it couldn't be fixed, it became a doorstop and a new handle for something else. Like, there was always multiple uses. And as a culture, we don't have that. We live in a digital age, in a disposable world, where you will actually get mocked for not trying to throw something away into the forever bin. So it's a different world today. It happens one person at a time, individually in our own circles. No different than when people get all worried about the future of the planet for any reason, politics, climate change, whatever it is. My new answer is the same. Do something within 3 miles. Turn off the television, go outside, let the sun hit your skin. If you get an opportunity, put your hands in the dirt and help someone within 3 miles. That is a culture change that has to happen. If we change that mindset, you can still buy things, but we'll think about it first. And I bet you'll need less. I still buy things I don't necessarily need, like a duplex, but we get outside. Actually, oddly enough, it's helping me because I'm out there swinging hammers. I'm moving around the joints that from sitting at a desk day in and day out for years after years that are starting to hurt are starting to feel a little better. I'm kind of getting back into the ground. I'm digging things up. We're working just like Grandpa did. Not like Grandpa did. Grandpa worked way harder than me.
Way harder.
Way harder. But it's so hard in our current culture. We can literally have anything delivered.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even have to spend money we have. That's a weird sentence. We don't have to spend resources that we currently have. We can mortgage our future generally as far as we want. And in sustainability, the term sustainability is to meet your own needs without mortgaging the future or hindering those who will come later. We're not even hindering them, we're hindering ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even necessarily meeting our own needs. Shows like this, starting sustainability, these other shows, and it just can't go quiet because we're all going to forget because society has been designed for consumerism. So you say, why can't we make that change? You can buy a Big Mac cheaper than an apple sometimes. That's why.
Which is odd. So odd.
It shouldn't be a thing. Let's do it. One of these days, we should do a carbon count on it and go through its life cycle and figure out how much is in each one of them and wonder why.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Even with high cost, we've chosen otherwise as a nation. That's crazy to me. But it is the culture. And until we change that culture, which means look for leaders with the same ideas, look for or be a leader with the same ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Function in town, just like we started the show off. There's a ton of good people doing a ton of good things, but it started off with a small core of people in this town. And here I am getting all emotional about all the kindness just being flung everywhere. So we can do that.
Yeah.
We just have to keep doing it. If you fall off the horse, you get back on it. Find uses for the current waste, like having compost in your city. You got a friend that you're nearby? Hey, anybody nearby Durand, we get this. Come dump it in mine. We got to find uses. And that's where the importance lies, is stopping, remembering, and resetting as often as you have to.
As usual, knocked it out of the park, man.
I don't know. It's just, this one was weird. This is not when I researched this a little bit, it was not what I expected. I really expected something very, very different. And I really didn't know how to even position this show because it was so foreign or out of whack at the moment to me that it was I just couldn't understand. And I get it now. I understand it now. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Sustainability going forward is going to be more challenging because of COVID. It's going to be more challenging because of the current culture. And we're just going to have to keep, swinging.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those topics where, for every possible solution that you come up with, you find that there are all of these counterproductive or counterintuitive practices behind it. So it's, that like that old adage, one step forwards, two step backwards. And that in this specific topic, like that's the most true, because there's so many different things contributing to both of these, that it almost feels unsolvable. Like, I don't want to take the pessimist route behind it at all, but you're right. It is an uphill battle for sure.
Well, and that's why you change the scope. When you see something like this, it's very disheartening. So I'm going to have to help someone within my 3 miles. I have to do something good within that 3 miles. If you can do that, every time you're disheartened, At some point, you're going to change the culture of that 3 miles. And maybe someone on the edge of that 3 miles, your 3 miles, will do the same. And it will broaden that scope. The only way we're going to be able to adjust what is happening in the world is little bit, big bit.
I love it. I love it.
Anyways, that's all we had for everybody. Remember, if you like this show, share it with a friend. Click the follows, click the likes, leave a comment. If you haven't already on Spotify or iTunes or whatever your favorite podcast platform is, please do so. And before I close us, we always have to revert back to the man, Mr. Bogan.
Hey,
give us the socials. Where can people find you?
Oh man, quick little search for at the Curated Culture on Facebook or Instagram, or _ Curated Culture on X, formerly known as Twitter. Or if you want to follow me directly, just search for Robbie Diesel and you'll see my beautiful chocolatey face pop up on whatever social media app that you use. Give me a follow. I'm a fairly jovial person. I enjoy communication and I enjoy curating the culture for you all.
Well, again, I always appreciate when you come on the show. I always appreciate having your perspective, your humor, even if you're a little drowsy today. I fully understand. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Hey man, it's always my pleasure. I always enjoy these. And I do want to say real quick before we close that I also appreciate everything that you do, man. Like these, when you first started out, I told you that these are very necessary projects. And I love to see that you're finally getting recognition for it. So kudos to you, my friend.
Well, 3 miles, something within the 3, hold the door open for someone and within 3 miles. And let's also remember, thank you everybody who listens. There's been a nice little uptick in new listeners. I appreciate it. I assume that's purely from the rest of you sharing and telling people about the show. We do appreciate that. It kind of hits me in the heart. And I just want to say thank you, as we do at the end of every show again. And remember, even in times like today, when we're looking at data and we're looking at situations and it doesn't come out the way we want, it's a little disheartening. But just remember 2 things: help someone within 3 miles, do your part within a small area, turn off that news and do your part. And remember, together, little bit, big bit. That's how we get it done. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Mike.
And I am Rob.
We'll see you